Welcome to Access All Areas, candid conversations about disability. My name's Fiona DeMark, and I am here in Melbourne, Australia. And I am speaking today to Chris, who is now going to introduce himself.
Good morning. Yes, so it's 4 p.m. in Melbourne. It's 7 a.m. in the UK. And my name's Chris, and I run an Instagram called The Blindman with a Backpack, where I talk about disability, raising awareness for visual impairments. I myself am registered blind. I have cone dystrophy, which means that I have no central vision. And am unable to see any kind of detail, no longer able to drive, finding it very difficult to read, and have to use a lot of assistive technology in order to get around and retain my independence.
Lovely. And it's so cool to actually meet somebody else who has the same diagnosis as me, because as you would know, it's actually quite uncommon, Chris, to have
Mm.
what we have. There's quite common other versions. Retinitis pigmentosa is the most famous kind of version of what we have. But yeah, it's a special little select group within the vision impaired community that has our diagnosis. So kind of
It
exciting.
is,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, as exciting as disability can be in some ways, I guess.
It's always nice when you find somebody else in the same club as you. So
Yeah. You know,
yes.
being on a yacht after winning the lotto club would maybe be a bit of a different perspective,
Well,
but.
yeah, I mean, all right. So there are different type levels of club, but no, it's nice to always have that solidarity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's what I think is wonderful with with the way the online community is now is that you can connect to people, and when whether you've got a relatively common ailment or something which is more rare. I mean, it's amazing how rare these conditions are, especially when you look at the different genetic changes as well, and all of the different uh, potential issues or potential gene mutations or faults that there can be. It's amazing how you do sort of find other people around the world who you can connect with and talk to, and
Mm.
it really builds that sense of community and sense of not being the only one as well.
Absolutely, because I think that's hugely important. Like quite often, we can feel quite isolated, especially when it is something that is less than usual. I
Mm.
think it's very easy to sort of get caught up in your own little space, and so to be able to share ideas and concepts and just even little tips and tricks as to how life hacks, I guess, is often quite interesting. And one of the things that I know sort of I've learnt from your Instagram is that I know that you've done a house renovation recently for your kitchen, and you took a completely different perspective because of your disability and lack of vision. In some ways, has made your renovation a completely different process.
Yes, it has, and actually, it's been what we've ended up with has been. I mean, it's not only is it functional, not only does it meet my specific needs, it's we've actually got some really nice features that otherwise we wouldn't have. It's like the lighting features. It's funny the comments that we've had from when we first talked. So one of the challenges with something like rod cone dystrophy is where you have you're very impacted by direct light, and so we were very keen to have a set of lighting, which meant if it was a very bad day for me, if it was, or if there was I was having a bit of a challenge with light, then it would actually, rather than shining directly down, it actually lit up, which made more of an ambient feel to it. And our electrician and our builders, they were both very good, and but you could see from sort of the tone of their voices and the looks that they were giving each other that this was complete crazy. So, but what happened at the end, once it's all finished and when they turn the lights on, the effect is amazing. It makes the kitchen look so. The lighting is actually it's the main lighting that we use all the time now, just because it's got a really nice effect to it.
Mm.
It's bright, it's clean, and actually it's turned it into a real feature, which is great. And and again, the electricians, the builders, everybody that walks in, and when you turn the lights on, they go, "Oh wow, this is absolutely amazing." It's just like, yeah,
Yeah.
this is what we wanted, and
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 isn't it funny how something that was initially an accessibility feature has just turned into a kitchen feature? And
yeah,
I think that's the thing is, like so often things that are established for accessibility reasons have such
mm,
wide and expansive opportunities for other people. I mean, we only need to think about something like Siri on our phones. That was something that was designed for accessibility in the beginning, but it's now made everybody's life much easier.
oh, it has. I mean, I know a lot of people like in the most recent versions of Microsoft Office, where you have the read aloud function, where people will just, they just use that all the time to read an email out to them rather than
Mm,
having to sit and read it themselves. And it does make life so much easier. It becomes like an accessibility piece first of all, but then it falls into the mainstream. And audiobooks is the other. That's a massive
mm.
example of an
Exactly.
accessibility function. And it's there are some things which will never. I mean, a long white cane. I mean, I can't see that coming. I can't see that taking on in the general. But
Fashion item.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Maybe put some tinsel around it at Christmas or something, maybe. But it's there are some things which they are very much an accessibility tool, or a mobility aid. But other things, they move in and they just move into the mainstream and they just become the norm, and yet for the likes of you and I and other people in our community, they're essential.
Mm,
And if they go away, it's a real challenge at that point.
that's
So
exactly
yeah.
right. Yeah. So we'll spin into my standard questions and we'll see how we end up. So my first question that I always ask everybody is, what do you think is the best thing about having a disability or chronic medical condition?
See, these are funny, aren't they? Because you talk about disability and immediately people think about the disability and they go, "Oh my God, I could never do that. How can you?
Mm,
That's that's something which you must. How can you cure it? How can you get rid of it? How can how can you get away from it?"
mm,
And actually, it's only really when you're in that space that you realize it's not the worst thing in the world. And in fact, it doesn't actually end your life, and it doesn't end anything. It just means that you need to adapt. And so many people do, and so many people thrive as a result of it. I mean, there are things which I've been able to do as a result of my disability that I otherwise wouldn't have done. Like my writing, I mean, it's something which has become a real passion of mine, is being able to sit and write and talk about my experiences and put pen to paper. And it's a real process, and it's something which is real. It's almost therapy for me in a way.
mm,
And I otherwise wouldn't have done that. I mean, I mentioned earlier about the community that we have. With the with the online community, with social media as it is, I mean, it's got a lot of its demons, but at the same time, social media is a great connecting place for people of all sort of shapes and sizes, if you like, but of all ailments, of all conditions. And it's just a way to link and to learn from other people and to see, oh, actually, you, you can see from others that these are things like whether it's learning about different ways of using a cane or different tips of a cane, hints and tips about places that are good for that will accept guide dogs, other places that won't. There are so many things in that community which you otherwise wouldn't see, and you really do feel a part of it as well. That's what's nice, is you do feel real part of that community.
mm.
um, and I think it's a surprising, but it's a real benefit of being disabled. And it's funny, I was talking to somebody in the office last week, and I said to them, and you could almost hear the surprise in their face, and just like, I wouldn't change this.
Mm.
It's been a journey, and it's continuing to be a journey because it's degenerative. But I wouldn't get rid of it. I wouldn't change it. It makes up who we are, and I think that's it. ironically, it's a good thing. I really do.
Yeah, and it's amazing. Like, quite often we do share that positive perspective, but for many
Mm.
people from, as you said, the outside, they see it as it's a horrible experience and it must be, like kind of the end of your life the way you knew it. And it's kind of
Yeah,
like, well, no, we all have things, I guess, that we need to adapt to. And, disability is just one of those small parts of who we are.
exactly. It really is, and I think as well the other thing as well is it's that whole concept of disability as a social construct.
Mm,
We aren't disabled because of our conditions. It's not a medical thing. There are things that we physically unable to do as a result of having reduced vision or lesser physical mobility due to different conditions or whatever. But the disability is a result of society. We
mm,
are disabled by where we are and by the lack of accessibility and the lack of, um, and dare I say it, by attitudes. And it sounds like I'm starting to do a little bit of able bashing, and I'm really not, because in the main, community is amazing, and they're so supportive, and lots of people when you're sitting down and you're looking at, I work in IT, and so you talk to other product owners and other IT developers, and they're all very amenable and very very considerate of how to make an application accessible. But there is that small there is things where it misses the mark almost, and it's that gap that's the bit which makes things disabled, and that's where that challenge is. We're not, but the whole point about being disabled, um, just purely right, you're blind, therefore you're disabled. That's not
mm.
it. You're disabled because of not being able to access a website, or you know um, not having the correct assistance on the train. Sorry, apologies. It's very early in the morning here, so I might start to ramble.
Oh, that's fine. Trust me, if I were you, I'd be exactly the same, trying to drink some coffees to keep me awake at that time to be comprehensive.
Yeah.
So I guess, and it kind of leads very much on from what you were just speaking about. My second question is, if we were thinking about the positive things previously, what do you think the negative things are about having a disability?
Well, as you said, I think the biggest thing is it's those occasions when things go wrong, and whereas previously you'd just be able to just adapt, here it becomes a big thing, and you can't just change lanes or change directions. There's you can't just adapt to something on the fly. There are
Mm,
things which, take say for example, take assistance on railways, for example. If you're reliant on assistance being there to support you, whether it's to put a ramp onto the side, onto a train door, or whether it's assistance getting from one platform to the other because you can't see. If that assistance suddenly isn't there, then that's a massive impact. You can't just go, oh well, not to worry, I'll make my own way.
mm,
You need to then stop, take a breath, think about what you're doing, find, maybe even pick up a phone and call somebody, or start, just find the help point or something like that. But it's there are many things that you have to do in order to then adapt to when things change on the fly. And I think that is the real challenge with being disabled. Or it is the sitting in a restaurant, and they'll come up with the all of the dietary requirements, and they'll say, right, here you go, here's your gluten-free menu, here's your wheat-free menu, here's your vegan menu. Have you got a large print menu? No, we don't do that. Yeah,
mm, mm,
almost the one thing which makes them accessible. Well, no, the one thing which does make them accessible, and the one thing which is almost covered by law, is the thing which always gets forgotten.
Yes.
It's instances like that that's when you really do feel disabled.
Mm,
And
mm.
it does, at 42, having your wife reading the menu to you is not what you want to do. But it's amazing that she does, but at the same time, it's not right. I
Yeah,
think that
yeah,
it's
not an
times like that
ideal
that's when you
situation.
really do feel self-conscious.
Yeah. And it does go back to that whole, like you said, the social model. It's not that you can't see, it's the fact that that restaurant hasn't taken into account the fact that they could have had a large print menu, which would have just given you the access that you needed to be able to be independent rather than relying on somebody else.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And so my third question, and I guess that, brings it back around to something that is there something more practical thing, is what do you wish that people knew about disability, or what do you think is something that you would like to pass out as a message to people that they can potentially, do differently, think differently, act differently in relation to yourself or other people with disabilities? How do you think we can change things for the better?
See, as I said, it goes back to what I mentioned earlier. Society as a whole are very good and very, I think amenable is the wrong word, but society will, they see somebody who is disabled, then there is, there's always support there if it's needed. Now that's the point. I think the point is if it's needed.
Mm,
And what you need to realize is we might look like we're walking a bit slow, or we might look like we're not knowing where we're going, or we might look like we might be walking towards the side of a busy main road, and you might really feel that urge to stop you. But actually, we know what we're doing. That long white cane, don't actually, don't ignore the cane. Don't think that that long white cane isn't actually serving a very good job. It's not just there to make people aware. We're not waving it around just to go, look here, I'm blind. That process is there to find the curb.
mhm,
It's if there's a massive puddle coming up ahead, it's very nice that you've told me, but I'll hear it when my cane touches that puddle, and
mm,
I'll be able to work my way around it. You know, don't just take somebody's arm or take the handles of a wheelchair. Don't take somebody's arm if to try and steer them out of the way. Ask. I think that that's the real key. Is if you believe that somebody might need some help, ask the question. You know, are you
mhm,
okay? Do you need a hand? And just be polite. Just ask the question how you would ask anybody else. And if the answer is no, thank you, I'm absolutely fine, then that's fine. Then that's fine. If they say, actually, you know what? Well, I'm a little bit lost. Can you just Can you just point me in the right direction? Then that's fine too. But then do what you've been asked to do. Just give some directions and say, or just give some directions. Don't then go, oh, let me take your arm and take you there, because then you've taken it a step too far.
mm,
And just remember that we are as disabled people. It doesn't mean that we're not independent. It doesn't mean that we're not intelligent. It doesn't mean that we're not we're not able to do things for ourselves. And I think that that's the bit which gets forgotten. They see, especially if it's a visible disability, like for example, if you have a physical condition or using a long white cane or whatever that may be, um, then it's obviously it's much more obvious then. But even so, don't just assume that we all need help all the time. The other thing I would say, especially around especially around sight loss, is people will often be polite and they'll let you go first when trying to get off a bus or trying to get off a train and all of that stuff. And they'll stand there and they'll put their arm out or something like that. It's a visible disability. Yeah, the point is I can't see, so you need to speak. And I think sometimes people are almost afraid to say something. But it's just like, no, please do, because I can't actually do. I
yeah,
don't know what you're
that's
doing.
right.
No, it's just be mindful of that one as well. But I mean, I think it's just little things like that. I mean, in the main, I think people are very very aware, and in the main, people will adapt. I mean, it's or people will almost give you your personal space.
Mm,
Uh, but uh, but yeah, I think that that would be the key thing. Is just remember that we're all individuals, and we're all going about our daily lives. And yes, sometimes we need a little bit of help, but actually, we know how much or how little help we need. Don't assume that you know better. I think
mm,
that's
mm.
the
Yeah,
message.
absolutely. That respectful asking, how can I
Yeah,
help you? Or do you
definitely.
need the help? And then how can I
Yeah,
help you? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Alrighty, cool. Well, I'll get you to spruik your blind man with a backpack page a little bit. So give everybody a little bit more information about that before we wrap up.
Sure. Yeah. So what I tried to do with the blind man with a backpack, so it's on Instagram and Facebook, and it's at blind underscore man underscore with underscore a underscore backpack. It's also on Twitter at blind underscore backpack. What I just tried to do on there is sometimes it's sharing funny photos of my dog, just and other times it will be trying to make people aware um, of the surroundings of things, talking about if I'm going to gigs, taking photos of gigs and showing about the accessibility, highlighting accessibility functions of music venues around London and around the southeast of the UK. Try and share some life hacks, if you like, around being disabled and blindness in particular. So talking about canes and how all the different various types of canes that you have and various types of tips and all of that stuff. Try and just talk about really just it's there to talk about sight loss, talk about disability, and raise the awareness. So that's on my social medias. I also have a website which is blindmanwithabackpack.uk. That is where I share some of my writings, which I talked about earlier. It takes me quite a long time to write things down, so it's not something which I post every week, but I try and get things up there quite regularly. Um, and talking about disabilities, talking about various social situations, and just trying to really raise some awareness and put some thoughts down, and hopefully it's things which people find of interest, and people like to it's stuff which can help to provoke thought and build continue the conversation.
Excellent. And I will put links to those in the social media post as I post this as well. So thank you so much for your time this morning slash this afternoon from wherever we happen to be. And yeah, looking forward to continuing sharing your journey. And yeah, hope this gets some more people on board and shares the awareness to get more people thinking about how we can make that social model of disability a better place for us all to live our lives, not only for people with disabilities, but for everybody to be, treated as individuals and respected for what they bring, not necessarily, who they are or what their abilities or disabilities happen to be.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your time. It's been lovely, and it's been really nice to chat with somebody else with cone dystrophy as well. And and it's always nice to chat and share experiences. So thank you for inviting me on.